The storm came suddenly that night, wild, angry, and loud. Rain fell in thick sheets over the dark forest, hitting the roof of Jack's small wooden cabin like drums. The wind howled through the pine trees, and thunder rolled over the mountains. It was the kind of night that made most people lock their doors and stay close to the fire. But Jack had lived in those woods for years. He wasn't afraid of storms anymore. He sat in his chair beside the crackling fire, a blanket over his shoulders, a cup of coffee in his hand. The radio was silent. The power had gone out an hour ago. Only the orange glow of the flames painted the room. It was peaceful in its own lonely way. Then, through the storm, came a sound that didn't belong. A deep, heavy boom echoed through the forest, far away but strong enough to shake the cabin windows. Jack set down his mug and frowned. That wasn't thunder. It sounded different, like metal breaking or an explosion muffled by distance. Curiosity got the better of him. He grabbed his flashlight, pulled on his raincoat, and stepped outside. The cold wind hit him instantly. Rain soaked his boots as he walked down the muddy path leading into the woods. The forest glowed faintly with flashes of lightning, revealing tree shadows dancing wildly. Then he saw it, far between the trees, a faint blue light pulsing against the darkness. Jack narrowed his eyes. "What the hell is that?" he muttered, gripping his flashlight tighter. He followed the light, careful on the slippery ground, his heart beating faster with every step. The air smelled like burned metal and ozone. The closer he got, the stronger that strange blue glow became, flickering like dying fireflies. Finally, he reached a small clearing and froze. There, half buried in the mud, was something he'd never seen before. A metallic pod, no bigger than a small car, split open down the middle, steam rising from its cracked surface. Blue symbols glowed faintly across it like veins of light. Sparks hissed and smoke curled into the storm. Jack stepped closer, raising his flashlight, and then he saw her. A figure lay beside the wreck, motionless. She looked human at first glance, but her skin shimmered faintly silver under the rain. Her hair was white, not gray, not blonde, but shining like threads of light. Her clothes were torn, made of some smooth material that glowed faintly at the edges. Jack's breath caught. Jesus! He knelt beside her, checking if she was alive. Her skin felt warm, too warm, like holding something made of sunlight. Her pulse was fast but steady. When he brushed mud from her face, her eyes suddenly opened, bright and clear, glowing a soft violet. She gasped, trying to move, but her body trembled with weakness. "Help, please," she whispered, her voice soft, strange, almost musical. Jack blinked, shocked that she spoke English at all. "Hey, easy there," he said gently. "You're hurt. Don't move." Her fingers grabbed his wrist tightly, trembling. "They'll come," she said, eyes wide with fear. "You must not let them." Her voice faded and she collapsed back into the mud. Jack didn't waste another second. He picked her up carefully, surprised at how light she was, almost weightless. She shivered against him, and a faint blue light glowed beneath her skin where his arms touched. He didn't understand what she was, where she came from, or who they were. But none of it mattered right now. He carried her through the rain, step by step, back to his cabin. By the time he reached the porch, his arms ached and his breath came hard, but he didn't stop. Inside, he laid her gently on the couch near the fire, covered her with a blanket, and lit another log to bring up the warmth. For a moment, he just stood there, dripping rainwater onto the floor, staring at the strange woman now sleeping in his home. The light from the fire flickered across her face and her breathing slowed to calm, steady rhythm. Jack rubbed his hands over his face. "What the hell did I just drag in?" he muttered to himself. He didn't know it then, but that night would change everything. The forest, his quiet life, his loneliness, all of it. The stranger he found in the storm wasn't just a lost traveler. She was something else, something not of this earth. And by letting her stay, Jack had opened a door he could never close again. Outside, the rain finally began to ease and the thunder faded into the distance. Inside the small cabin, two lives, one human, one not, had just crossed paths for the first time. And somewhere deep in the woods, far beyond the trees, a faint blue light blinked again, like an eye searching for what it had lost. When morning came, the storm had passed. The forest looked washed clean, every leaf dripping silver drops under the pale sunlight. Inside the cabin, the air smelled of wood smoke and rain. Jack woke up early, still unsure if what he saw last night had been real, or just some strange dream brought on by loneliness and bad weather. But then he saw her. The silver-skinned woman was still there, lying on his couch, wrapped in his old wool blanket. Her chest rose and fell gently. Her hair spread across the pillow like strands of white fire. The faint blue glow under her skin had dimmed, but it was still there, like soft moonlight trapped beneath her flesh. Jack stood there for a long time, just watching her. She didn't look dangerous. She looked fragile, lost. He made some coffee, sat down on the chair across from her, and kept staring, trying to make sense of everything. When she finally stirred, her eyes fluttered open slowly. Violet, bright and sharp, they darted around the room, full of confusion and fear. "You're safe," Jack said quietly, raising his hands a little. "You're in my cabin. I found you outside, near that metal thing." Her gaze locked onto him. "You helped me." "Yeah," he said simply. Seemed like the right thing to do. She blinked as if the concept surprised her. Then she tried to sit up but winced in pain, pressing her side. "I cannot stay long. They may come." "Who?" Jack asked, leaning forward. She hesitated, looking at the floor. "The ones who sent me here. My people do not like disobedience." Jack frowned. "You're saying you ran away?" Her lips parted slightly, and for the first time, he saw something deeply human in her eyes. Guilt, sadness, fear. "Yes," she whispered. "I ran." Jack didn't push further. He brought her a bowl of soup, the only thing he knew how to cook well. She watched him with quiet curiosity as he set it down beside her. The steam rose up, fogging her reflection in the spoon. She picked it up carefully, mimicking his motions. After a few small sips, she smiled weakly. "Warm," she said. "It feels kind." Jack chuckled softly. "It's just chicken soup." But deep down, he knew it wasn't the soup that mattered. It was the warmth, the kind she'd probably never known. Over the next few days, Lyra, as she finally told him her name, began to recover. She spoke in short sentences, her English broken but improving fast. She learned by watching, listening, repeating. Jack was amazed. He'd never met anyone who learned that quickly. He taught her simple things. How to make tea, how to close the door gently so it wouldn't creak, how to sit by the fire without burning herself. In return, she helped him in quiet, unexpected ways. Once, when his old generator stopped working, she placed her hand on the engine, whispered something in a soft alien language, and the machine hummed back to life. Another time, when he burned his hand on the stove, she touched it lightly, and the pain vanished instantly, leaving only a faint blue shimmer on his skin. Jack didn't understand how she did it, but he stopped questioning it. Some things, he figured, were better left as miracles. At night, when the forest grew still, they would sit together by the fire. Lyra would stare into the flames like she was seeing memories in them. Jack would sip his coffee and sometimes tell her stories about the war he fought in, the city he left behind, the family he lost. She listened without judgment, her eyes soft, her expression filled with something like empathy. "I thought I was done with people," Jack admitted one night. "Thought I could just live out here and forget everything." Lyra turned to him, her glowing eyes reflecting the firelight. "But you did not forget," she said. "You still kept a light burning, for someone." He didn't answer. He didn't have to. She smiled gently, and for the first time he realized how beautiful her smile was, not because of how she looked, but because it felt real. Each day after that, the cabin felt less empty. She started walking outside, touching the trees like they were old friends. Sometimes she would hum softly, and the air around her seemed to shimmer faintly. Birds would come closer when she sang, as if the whole forest listened. Jack found himself watching her more often than he wanted to admit. She didn't belong here. He knew that. But somehow her presence made everything feel alive again. And as snow began to fall for the first time that winter, Lyra stood at the window, her hand pressed against the glass, watching the white flakes drift down from the gray sky. "This world," she whispered softly. "It breathes." Jack smiled from behind her. "Yeah," he said quietly. "It does." And for the first time in years, he realized he was breathing too. The days turned into weeks and winter wrapped the forest in silence. The trees stood tall and white under a blanket of snow. Jack's cabin, once a lonely shelter for one man, now felt different, alive, warm, and full of quiet sounds that were new to him. The sound of Lyra's soft voice reading from one of his old books. The soft hum she made when she worked on something. The clinking of cups when she made tea the way he'd taught her. She had changed the rhythm of his life without even trying. Jack woke early one morning to find her sitting by the window. She was wrapped in one of his flannel shirts, staring out at the sunrise. Her silver skin reflected the golden light, and her eyes, those strange violet eyes, seemed full of thought. "You don't sleep much, do you?" he asked quietly. She turned, smiling faintly. "Sleep is not the same for me. My kind rests differently. I listen to the world. I hear the forest breathing." Jack chuckled softly, rubbing his hands for warmth. "You make it sound alive." "It is," she said simply. "Your planet, it speaks in colors, sounds, feelings. It is beautiful." He didn't say it, but he thought the same about her. There was something peaceful about the way she spoke, like she saw beauty in everything, even the smallest things he took for granted. Later that day, Lyra helped him chop wood. She insisted on learning, though Jack wasn't sure she needed to. The first time she swung the axe, it split the log clean in two with a single perfect strike. Jack blinked. "Okay," he said with a grin. "Maybe you don't need my lessons after all." Lyra tilted her head, confused. "Did I do wrong?" He laughed. "No, you did it better than me." For a moment she looked surprised. Then she smiled, a small, shy smile that warmed the air between them. At night they would sit by the fire, sharing quiet moments. Sometimes Jack played his old guitar. The strings were worn, but the sound still carried through the cabin softly. Lyra listened with her eyes half closed, the flames dancing across her face. "This music," she whispered once. "It feels like memory," he nodded. "That's what it is. Each note reminds you of something you lost or something you hope to find again." She looked at him then, and for a second he saw sadness in her gaze. "My people have no music. We were not allowed such things. Feelings are seen as flaws where I come from." Jack frowned. "That's no way to live." "No," she said quietly. "It is not." She told him pieces of her story then, how she had been part of a race called the Virene, a race that valued logic, order, and control above all else. They built great cities among the stars, ruled by councils and laws that left no room for love, laughter, or freedom. She had served as an explorer, studying new worlds, but when she began to question their ways, when she began to feel, she became something they feared. "They said emotion is a disease," she whispered, "but I think it is what makes us alive." Jack listened in silence, watching her face lit by the fire. He could see pain in her eyes, but also hope, like a spark that refused to die. He placed another log in the fire. "You're not wrong," he said softly. "Feeling doesn't make you weak. It makes you human." She looked at him with curiosity. "Human, is that what you are?" He smiled. "Last time I checked." Lyra laughed softly, and the sound of it made something inside him stir. It had been a long time since laughter filled that cabin. Days later, they built small things together. A better stove. A light powered by the strange crystals from her broken pod. Jack was surprised by how easily she mixed her world with his. Metal and wood. Light and warmth. Science and simplicity. Two worlds becoming one, under a shared roof. And in the evenings, when the snow outside glowed under the moonlight, Lyra would hum softly, strange tunes that shimmered in the air like starlight. Jack didn't understand the words, but he understood the feeling behind them. One night after she finished humming, she turned to him and said softly, When I first came here, I was afraid. But when I hear the fire and the rain and your voice, I do not feel alone." Jack looked at her for a long moment, feeling something heavy in his chest, a warmth he hadn't felt in years. "You're not alone anymore," he said. Lyra's eyes glowed faintly brighter and she whispered, "Then maybe I have found my home." Jack didn't answer. He only smiled, but in that moment something deep inside him shifted. The cabin wasn't just his anymore, it was theirs, and neither of them realized how soon that fragile peace would be tested. The forest was quiet that evening. Snow had stopped falling, and the air was so still that even the smoke from the chimney rose in a straight, thin line into the pale sky. Jack sat by the fire, polishing one of his old tools, while Lyra sat at the small table, studying a broken piece from her crash pod. The cabin was warm, glowing softly under the orange light of the flames. It had become a safe place, a small piece of peace neither of them wanted to lose. But peace has a way of never lasting long. Lyra had been silent for most of the day. Her usually calm face seemed tense, her movements slower. Jack noticed it but didn't say anything until she suddenly froze, her hand hovering over the piece of metal. A faint hum filled the air, a sound low and strange like a whisper coming from deep under the floor. Jack frowned. "What's that noise?" Lyra stood up quickly. "It's not the cabin," she said. Her eyes glowed brighter for a moment. "It's the pod." Before Jack could ask more, a pulse of blue light flashed from the corner where her damaged pod rested under a tarp. It glowed once, twice, then came fully alive, symbols dancing across its cracked surface. The faint sound turned into a voice, a cold, mechanical tone that seemed to echo from everywhere at once. Signal acquired. Unit Lyra of Vereen, status unknown. Coordinates locked. Retrieval team inbound. Lyra's face went pale, her hands trembling. "No," she whispered. No, they found me." Jack stood up, stepping beside her. "Who found you?" "My people," she said, backing away from the pod. "They are coming. They will take me back, Jack. They will erase what I've become." Jack frowned. "What do you mean, erase?" "They do not forgive those who feel," she said, her voice breaking. "They believe emotion is corruption. They will take me, break me, and make me. Cold again?" Jack's jaw tightened. "Not if I can help it." She looked at him, her violet eyes full of sadness. "You cannot fight them. They are not like you. They will burn this forest to ashes just to reach me." He stepped closer, his voice calm but firm. "Then they'll have to go through me first." Lyra stared at him for a long moment, her lips trembling. "Why?" she asked softly. "Why would you risk your life for me?" Jack didn't answer right away. He just looked at her, the woman who had fallen from the stars, who had turned his loneliness into something living. "Because you matter," he said simply. "And because no one deserves to be taken from a place they finally belong." Her eyes filled with tears, faintly glowing as they fell. "You are a strange species, Jack. You fight even when you cannot win." He smiled faintly. "That's the only way we ever learned how to live." For the rest of the night, Lyra worked desperately to shut down the signal. She pulled wires, whispered in her language, and used her strange light to try and block the transmission. But the pod glowed brighter each time she touched it, almost like it was fighting back. Jack helped her move heavy parts, fetched tools, and tried to calm her trembling hands. "We'll figure it out," he said. "We always do." Finally, the light from the pod flickered, then dimmed completely. Silence filled the cabin again. Lyra fell to her knees, exhausted, breathing hard. "Did you stop it?" Jack asked, kneeling beside her. She shook her head slowly. "No, I delayed it. They will come." Jack's heart sank. He reached out and touched her shoulder gently. "Then we'll be ready." Lyra looked at him, her expression torn between fear and something deeper, something close to hope. "You would stand against my people? For me?" He nodded without hesitation. "For my friend? For my home?" Her lips trembled. "Your home?" He met her eyes. "Our home." The words hit her like warmth spreading through ice. She lowered her head, her silver hair falling over her face. "If they come," she whispered, "they will not understand that." "Then I'll make them understand," Jack said. Outside, the night grew darker. The wind began to stir again, whispering through the trees. In the distance, something faint blinked across the sky, like a star moving where no star should move. Lyra stood beside him by the window, her hand pressed against the glass. "They are already on their way." Jack followed her gaze to the faint blue light above the forest. He didn't say anything. He just reached out and held her hand, and in that quiet, snow-covered world, two hearts, one human, one alien, stood side by side, ready to face whatever was coming. Neither of them knew what the next sunrise would bring. But they both understood one thing: neither would face it alone. The following days passed in heavy silence. The forest, once peaceful, now felt tense, like the air itself was holding its breath. Jack could sense it in every gust of wind, every creak of the trees. Lyra moved quietly, her eyes always scanning the sky. She barely slept, and when she did, she murmured in her strange language, words filled with fear and sorrow. Jack did what he could. He repaired the old rifle, checked the generator, and stocked supplies. He had no idea what kind of fight was coming, but he wasn't going to let anyone take her without trying. On the third night it happened. The ground trembled softly at first, then stronger. The light outside the cabin shifted from warm orange to cold blue. Jack stepped out into the snow, rifle in hand. What he saw made his stomach twist. A massive ship hung silently above the trees, sleek, silver, and smooth like a blade. Its underside glowed with lines of blue light, and snow melted beneath it. The forest was bathed in that unnatural glow. Lyra ran outside behind him, her face pale, eyes wide. "Jack, they're here." The air hummed with low vibration as beams of light fell from the ship, forming circles on the ground. Out of those circles, figures appeared. Tall, slender, armored in dark plates that shimmered like glass. Their faces were hidden behind helmets that reflected the firelight from the cabin. Jack counted 6 of them. All carried strange weapons that hummed faintly with energy. One of them stepped forward, speaking in a sharp, metallic voice. "Unit Lyra of Vereen, you are charged with desertion and contamination. Surrender immediately." Lyra took a step back. "Please, I am not one of you anymore," she said, her voice trembling. "I do not wish to return." The leader tilted its head. "You do not have a choice." Jack stepped in front of her, his rifle steady but his hands shaking slightly. "She's not going anywhere." The leader's helmet turned toward him. "Human," it said in a tone that almost sounded disgusted. "This does not concern you." "It does now," Jack said. "She's under my protection." The alien hesitated, then raised its weapon. "Move aside or die." Jack took a deep breath. "Guess that's my answer then." He fired. The gunshot cracked through the cold night, echoing off the trees. The bullet hit the alien's chest armor, sparking off harmlessly. But the act itself made them pause. Humans, after all, weren't supposed to stand against the Vereen. "Run!" Jack shouted to Lyra, but she didn't run. Instead, she raised her hands, her palms glowing with soft blue light. "No!" she cried. A wave of energy rippled outward from her, pushing the nearest alien back several feet. Their weapons flickered, sparks dancing across their armor. Jack turned, eyes wide. "What the hell? I won't let them hurt you," she said. He ducked as a beam of white light shot past his shoulder, burning a tree trunk in half. The smell of ozone filled the air. Lyra moved forward, her body glowing brighter. Every step she took left faint blue footprints in the snow. The aliens regrouped. "Contain her!" one shouted. Lyra spread her arms, and the air around her shimmered like heat. A pulse of energy exploded outward, knocking the soldiers to their knees. Their weapons short-circuited, sparks flying in all directions. Jack had seen a lot of things in his life: war, destruction, loss. But nothing like this. She stood there in the snow, glowing like a fallen star, her face filled with both fury and sorrow. When the light faded, only one alien was still standing, the leader. Its armor was cracked, its weapon broken. It looked between Jack and Lyra, then spoke quietly, almost as if in disbelief. "You protect one of us," it said. "Why?" Jack lowered his rifle slightly. "Because that's what we do. We protect the people we care about." For a moment, the alien said nothing. Then it gave a slow, stiff nod. "You are different." It turned to Lyra. You have chosen your exile. The Vereen will not come again." Then without another word, it touched a small device on its arm. The others vanished in flashes of light. The ship above hummed once, then rose higher, disappearing into the clouds. The forest went silent once more. Lyra fell to her knees, breathing hard. The glow on her skin faded to nothing. Jack rushed to her side, catching her before she collapsed into the snow. "It's over," he said softly. "They're gone." Tears rolled down her silver cheeks, glowing faintly in the dark. "No," she whispered. "It's not over. They will never understand, but you stayed." Jack looked at her gently. "Of course I did." She rested her head against his shoulder, her voice weak but calm. "You humans, you fight for love. That is why your world still breathes." Jack didn't know what to say. He just held her close as the forest settled back into silence. Above them, stars broke through the clouds, cold, endless, but somehow for the first time beautiful. And in that frozen world, beneath those distant stars, two souls from different worlds found warmth in each other's presence. The storm had passed, but something new had begun. The morning after the attack was eerily calm. Snow still covered the forest in thick white blankets, but the trees seemed quieter than usual, as if they too were recovering from the night's violence. Jack and Lyra emerged from the cabin, brushing the snow from their coats, and surveyed the clearing. The trees were scarred from energy blasts, and the ground was marked with frozen footprints of strange alien armor. Jack knelt, running his gloved hands over the snow. "Looks like we survived," he said quietly, though his voice carried a weight he couldn't hide. Lyra watched him, her violet eyes soft but intense. "Survived, yes, but the forest has paid a price." He nodded. He had lived in the woods for years, but never had he seen it torn apart like this. Fallen branches, burned patches of snow, and the faint shimmer where alien weapons had left traces of their energy. It was a silent reminder of what they had faced. "We can fix it," Jack said, almost to himself. "We'll rebuild." Lyra stepped closer, placing a glowing hand on his shoulder. The warmth from her skin spread, not just through him, but through the cold, empty air around them. "I do not know how your world heals so quickly," she admitted. "Where I come from, once broken, stays broken." Jack looked at her. "Not everything," he said. "Some things we can repair. Some things we can make stronger than before." She nodded slowly, letting him lead her through the clearing to assess the damage. They spent the next hours gathering fallen logs, clearing debris, and patching the roof where alien energy had burned a hole. Lyra's strength was surprising. Though her body looked delicate, she moved with a grace and power Jack had never seen. She lifted heavy beams with ease, her skin glowing faintly under the morning sun, and guided him to place them perfectly. At lunchtime, Jack built a small fire and made soup again. Lyra tasted it carefully, then smiled. "Simple, but life-giving," she said softly. Jack chuckled, shaking his head. "That's all I've got." As the afternoon stretched on, they worked side by side. Lyra began to teach him small things, ways to stabilize energy, how to reinforce wood with a combination of her alien metals and his tools. It was awkward at first. The materials didn't always behave as they expected, but gradually, they began to see results. The cabin became warmer, sturdier, and even strange bits of alien technology glimmered faintly, integrated seamlessly with the human world. By evening, the storm of their attackers seemed like a distant memory. They sat together by the rebuilt fire, exhausted but satisfied. Snowflakes drifted gently outside, melting on the windows and leaving small rivers of water that glittered like liquid stars. Lyra stared into the flames, her voice soft. "I have never had someone care for me like this. Not before. Not my people. I am afraid I will never be like them, Jack. I am different." He reached for her hand, holding it over the warmth of the fire. So what? He said gently. You don't have to be like them. You have a choice now. You get to be who you really are. Her glowing eyes met his and she let out a small laugh mixed with tears. Your kind fights even when there is no hope. That amazes me. Jack smiled faintly. Sometimes the hope comes after the fight. She rested her head on his shoulder, a soft weight that made him feel protective in a way he hadn't felt in years. Then perhaps I have found hope, she whispered. He looked down at her, the firelight reflecting in her eyes like distant stars. You found more than hope, he said quietly. You found home. Her lips curved into a small smile. Home, she repeated softly, almost tasting the word. She pressed her glowing hand over his, and he felt a warmth that went beyond the physical. It was trust. It was connection. It was belonging. The night grew long, and the forest outside was silent again, save for the occasional crack of ice under the snow. Jack and Lyra stayed by the fire, talking quietly about their pasts, their fears, and the small dreams they now allowed themselves to imagine. They laughed softly at stories of human stubbornness and alien misunderstandings, sharing something neither had ever felt before, a sense of partnership, of shared life, of being seen and understood. And when they finally fell silent, listening to the fire crackle, Jack realized the truth. The cabin was no longer just a shelter. It was a place of safety, warmth, and healing, a place they had built together from fear, courage, and trust. Lyra looked at him once more, her violet eyes glowing softly in the dim firelight. I call this our home, she said. Jack's chest tightened with emotion. He had never expected to hear those words. He smiled, letting the firelight wash over both of them. Then our home it is, he said. Outside, the snow continued to fall gently. Inside, two worlds, one human, one alien, had found a single truth: that even in the coldest and darkest places, warmth and belonging could be created. And that warmth would protect them no matter what storms were yet to come. Winter slowly began to loosen its grip on the forest. The snow melted in patches, revealing the dark earth and the green shoots of early spring. Jack and Lyra worked together to repair more than just the cabin. They rebuilt the small clearing around it, cleared fallen trees, and planted saplings where the forest had been scarred. Each day was a quiet celebration of life returning, and each evening brought them back to the warmth of the fire. Lyra had changed. Not just physically, though her silver skin now shone even brighter in the sunlight, but emotionally. She laughed more, spoke more, and moved with a confidence that had once been foreign to her. Jack watched her often, a soft smile tugging at his lips. The alien he had found trembling in the snow had grown into someone who belonged, not just in the forest, but in his life. One afternoon, they worked together on a small wooden bridge over a creek that had formed when the snow melted. Jack hammered planks into place while Lyra steadied the beams, her glowing hands warm against the cold wood. You've taught me many things, she said softly. But the greatest is that life is not only survival. Life is love and trust and choosing to stand together. Jack paused, hammer in hand. He looked at her, taking in the light in her eyes, the gentle curve of her smile. You've taught me that too, he admitted. I thought I could only be alone in this forest. I was wrong. Lyra's gaze softened. You're not alone anymore, Jack, and neither am I. They finished the bridge in silence, the creek gurgling below, carrying pieces of snow and ice downstream. As the sun dipped behind the mountains, they walked back toward the cabin hand in hand. Inside, the fire burned low, but the warmth was enough. Lyra sat by the window, tracing her fingers over the frost that clung to the glass. Jack joined her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. For a moment, they just watched the forest in peaceful silence. Then Lyra spoke, her voice small but certain. I came here by accident, lost, afraid, and yet you did not turn away. You gave me shelter, food, and safety. And slowly, this place became more than that. It became ours. Jack pressed his forehead to hers. Yours, mine. It doesn't matter. It's ours. Her eyes glowed softly with tears. I never thought I would belong anywhere. Not with my people, not with anyone, but here, with you, I'm home. Jack smiled, feeling a warmth he hadn't realized he had been missing for so long. Then this is home, he said quietly, and we protect it, no matter what comes. Night fell and the stars began to appear one by one, bright against the deep black sky. Lyra raised her hand, letting a faint blue glow ripple across her fingers. The light seemed to mingle with the stars themselves, as if reaching out to the universe. You are amazing, Jack said softly, not because of what you can do, but because of who you are. Lyra looked at him, her eyes reflecting the stars and firelight at once. And you, Jack, are human, and human is stronger than I thought. Your courage, your care, your heart. They sat together in silence for a long time, hands entwined, listening to the soft night sounds, the rustle of leaves, the whisper of a distant stream, the occasional call of a bird returning from migration. Outside, the forest was alive. Inside, the cabin was alive. And in that quiet, Jack realized something he had never admitted before. He had never felt truly at home until now. Lyra leaned her head on his shoulder. Perhaps, she whispered, the universe brought me to you for a reason. Jack wrapped his arms around her tighter. Perhaps it did, he said. And if it did, then I am thankful. Thankful for every moment, every storm, every day that led you here. They stayed that way through the night, firelight flickering over their faces, snow melting quietly outside. They were two beings from completely different worlds, yet their souls had found each other in the middle of the forest. The cabin was no longer just a structure of wood and stone. It was a place of trust, of love, of shared life. It was a home built on courage, warmth, and the choice to care for someone no matter the odds. As dawn broke, spilling golden light through the windows, Lyra whispered softly, I am yours. This forest, this cabin, our home, is where I belong. Jack smiled, resting his forehead against hers. And I am yours, he replied. Welcome home, Lyra, welcome home. Outside, the forest breathed again. The creek sang its quiet song. The trees swayed gently in the morning breeze. And inside, in the little cabin that had once been empty, two hearts beat together, human and alien, bound by trust, love, and the courage to choose each other. The storm had passed. Life had returned. And for the first time, both of them knew that they were exactly where they were meant to be. Their home.